Okta shares have soared since the start of the year, up more than 20%. It looks like the company's new focus on efficiency is paying off. Brian Sozzi spoke with Okta CEO Todd McKinnon about that strategy shift amid the current macroeconomic environment in terms of uncertainty. Here's what he had to say.
Well, the first thing is our model of recurring subscription is showing leverage. So you build up a great customer base, you have retention that's very strong, you're able to sell that customer base new products that you're developing and innovating on. You layer that on with growth overall, and it's a model that's generating leverage. With the macroeconomic uncertainty we're all dealing with and growth moderating to some degree, you're seeing us invest proportionately less in sales and marketing, and in many cases that less investment can translate to more profitability.
Is it fair to say that Okta it's a more focused business now?
We're pretty ambitious in our plans long term, but I think we have taken some near term investment away from some growth initiatives and poured that back into profitability, which I think is the right thing for this time of macroeconomic uncertainty.
Talk to us about that macroeconomic uncertainty. Where is it hurting the most? Is it capturing new business?
I'd say a good part of it is caution and prudence for the future. The actual impact in our business that we've talked about in Q3 and Q4 of last year has largely been in two areas. One has been in our SMB segment, so smaller companies not purchasing as much capabilities as we expected, and then more of a shift toward upselling products to existing customers versus landing new customers. So those are the concrete metrics we've seen in our business. But really, we're being prudent about what could change going forward. In our outlook for the future, we're guiding to 16 to 70% revenue growth for FY24, which is the year we're in now. We're being prudent in that outlook, assuming the macroeconomic condition could get worse before it gets better.
Do you think it will get worse, just based on the numbers you guys see?
I think we have to be open to the possibility. But what we know is that these long-term trends that we're helping customers with, being secure, workforce efficiency, and digital transformation, are going to be powerful long-term. So when the the uncertainty around the economy clears up, we're going to be ready to go.
This has been a crazy week or two in markets and in finance and in business. It's given me flashbacks to 2008, 2009, but I'm not a security expert. In this environment where up feels down, I mean, do you get calls from other executives saying, hey, are we secure in this environment? What type of questions are you getting?
Well, I think security is one of those evergreen things. Everyone always wants to be secure. It's really a balance between how do we adapt to the world around us? How do we adopt the right technology? How do we do it more efficiently? How do we create new revenue streams where it's appropriate while at the same time being secure? So it's never just about security alone. It's how can we do all the things we want to do to move our business forward, and how can we do all the crazy things you have to do in the world right now to adapt and evolve in the landscape we're in and do it all securely.
You co-founded this company. You're plugged into the tech scene. You've spent your career in the tech industry. It's been a challenging time the past week and a half, especially with fellow folks that have started their own business. Maybe they couldn't get their cash at a Silicon Valley bank. What is the vibe in your community after an event like this?
I think the last year in tech has been, I would call it more coming off a high, coming off zero interest rates, coming off growth at all costs, coming off a hiring market that was extremely competitive and challenging. I would say now it feels more normal, especially compared to what it was a year or two ago. And I think the thing about tech is there's always an innovation. You see what's happening now with AI technology, and there's always a next wave. And it's about building companies for the long term that can both survive but also adapt and take advantage of the next wave of innovations as they come about.
How will this AI push impact your business?
I think, well, first of all, thinking you know the answer to that is probably underestimating the potential of AI. So what we're trying to do is have a very open mind. And when you look at what's happening with OpenAI and GPT-4 right now, or GPT-4 and then ChatGPT, taking that into account, it's the possibilities are endless. And I think the companies with the most open mind that look beyond the obvious use case are the companies that are going to have the advantage, and that's the approach we're taking.
Is this stuff secure? I call it stuff. I'm not even sure what to call it. I'm talking to a computer and it's writing things for me.
Well, the security is a journey, and it's anytime there's innovation, anytime there's change, there's an opportunity for the people that are trying to be malicious and trying to hack into things to take advantage of the new cracks and the new crevices. And there's also an opportunity for the industry and security vendors to adapt and plug those holes and make the entire ecosystem as secure as ever as it evolves. So that's why it's such a healthy to have a vibrant ecosystem of security vendors. It's why it's frankly dangerous to have security controlled by one large company. You hear about companies trying to build monolithic security stacks that provide all security. We think that's dangerous, and that's why one of the things we're doing in security is not only helping companies with secure login, but we're facilitating better integration between everything in the security suite. So your endpoint technology or your log analysis or your SOC tool all can work better together to provide a more secure environment as the inevitable change and onrush of technology happens.
I had a rude awakening over the past week as all this stuff was unfolding, all the banking crisis stuff. Not a lot of folks in my orbit lived through the last crisis. They weren't covering it. Sometimes they were in elementary school or they were in high school. You lived through it. You fell through it. You managed through the business. Does this feel like that time? And then how have you been leading through this crisis?
Well, I started Okta in 2009, so right in the echoes of the financial crisis.
It was bad.
And
that was bad.
You mentioned small companies earlier. Small companies are so incredibly fragile, and oftentimes they have one bank, and oftentimes they're just trying to strike out and survive. And it's a game of survival. And in some ways, it feels much different to have the scale and the breadth and the size of Okta and the diversity in terms of employees and products and business streams. But it's still one of the inevitables of technology is change, and you have to be able to adapt no matter what size company you are.
Is it key to over-communicate in this environment with employees?
I think that's something that is true all the time. I think if you want to build a culture that is fired up for your mission and trying to achieve collectively what the company can do better, greater than what any one individual can do, you have to have a stream of constant communication and be very clear about where you're going and set the framework for where you're going, but then entrust and empower the team to drive the specifics of that as they see fit.
I don't think I've ever asked you this, and we've talked a lot in the past, but what made you start Okta right essentially near a financial crisis?
It wasn't on purpose. It was just a matter of me thinking the time was right in terms of the evolution of cloud technology. And then that really rise into this need for better identity and better security. Because remember, cloud meant more services, more applications, more accessible computers, or more accessible systems. But it also meant that there were new opportunities for people to break in or people to take advantage of that environment. So we felt it was the perfect time.
That must have been really challenging to get a business off the ground when it felt like the world was collapsing.
We talk about some of the basic things. Like I remember we were worried about getting healthcare and like happening now, like our bank surviving and being single source to one bank. So these things can repeat sometimes.
Well, let's hope we do not get back to those times. Let's just deal with whatever this stuff may be. Okta CEO Todd McKinnon, always great to get some time with you. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Brian.